Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Tape, starring Ethan Hawke, Robert Sean Leonard, and Uma Thurman, directed by Richard Linklater. And before I get into this, I should probably tell you when this movie came out, and it came out in 2001 before Waking Life ever did. That's why I did this first and not Waking Life. Waking Life I'll get to next time. So, I have never seen this movie before. So let's just get straight to it, as I don't know too much about this one. We start in a hotel room in Michigan, as it's going to take place there the whole time, and we start off with Vin, played by Ethan Hawke, in the room as he gets prepared to meet up with his friends whom he hasn't seen in the last 10 years. And what a good way to set up a location in one room, I'll say at best. John, but not great in my opinion. John, played by Robert Sean Leonard, comes in as Vin acts goes psycho on him, and they have a piece of dialogue about how he broke up with his high school sweetheart Amy, played by Uma Thurman, as she's led to believe he's a dick, and she didn't like the way he dressed and tells John about it. And Steven Belber, who's the writer of this movie, as well as the play, which feels like one does do a good job, excuse me, with the dialogue in this movie. Vin waits for a call from someone while John acts like an asshole to him. And so far, I'm not really liking these two characters so far, as they're completely frustrating. And the camera work did kind of shake at times, as on my first viewing, I was falling asleep and waking up back and forth, as this is a boring movie, as it takes place in this hotel room for one night only. And thank God this is an 86-minute movie, and if it went longer, it would have been tedious. We learn Vin is a firefighter as well as a drug dealer, and they have a conversation about how Vin never got caught, as Vin is fucked up in the head. And John is a movie director, and he annoyed the shit out of me from start to finish. We learn Amy is an assistant to a district attorney, but when she comes in, I feel like she's manipulative throughout the movie, and I don't like her the most in this movie because, like I said, she's super manipulative. Vin and John argue about how Amy was dating Vin in high school and dumped his ass, and all of a sudden John dated after Vin and slept with her and has better sex than Amy, which is very disrespectful for them talking about having sex with Amy, which happened 10 years ago, and hasn't talked to her for the last 10 years. And I swear to God, the mirror in the background was very distracting, as it wasn't a good choice for Richard Linklater, the director, to keep the mirror there while viewing Robert Sean Leonard. And I'm led to believe I saw the camera in the mirror, as that was pretty distracting. Then thinks about calling Amy after talking about hers and John's sex life, and Amy told Vincent about how John raped her 10 years ago, as he recorded their conversation about John and Amy having sex with one another, and nothing is really happening in this movie, as Vin thinks about giving Amy the tape while smoking cocaine and wants to premiere their conversation at a film festival. John asks Vin to give him the tape and says Amy is coming to the hotel room, and she calls the room, and I'm getting very bored at this point. Amy comes by the hotel, and Vin and John catch up with Amy while John acts all sensitive and shit. And again, I don't like these characters, as I don't believe they're friends from start to finish. John leaves the building as things get more awkward while Vin tells Amy he admitted what he did to her 10 years ago, and he wants to show her the tape, and Amy almost leaves the room until John comes back in to talk to Amy and apologize to her, while Vin is acting like a jackass. When John asks Vin to leave them alone for a couple of minutes, and he apologizes to her for what happened to them senior year at the end of it at a friend's party, and gets into an intense conversation as he thinks about it, as she doesn't remember it, as I'm thinking she's bullshitting him, because her boyfriend is the district attorney in town, her current one, I'll say it best, and this is badly told as the camera goes back and forth, and it bothered me like it gave me a headache. Meanwhile, she asks if he was in love with her, while she was in love with him, and she's manipulating both of them as Vin is pissed off and John thinks it was a big deal, and Amy at first doesn't take him seriously, but eventually she disrespects him by telling John to go to hell and calls the district attorney about Vin's case of cocaine, and John is going to court for rape reasons, and she tells them to run for it, and John doesn't want to run, and Vin doesn't want to get caught as he dumps his cocaine and marijuana in the toilet, and that's when she gets manipulative, and I strongly dislike Amy for that choice, as John is a sexual predator and Vin is a cokehead, and dumps the cocaine and all the drugs in the toilet, and she admits what she did was fake, and Vin is pissed off about it and tells her she's fucked up in the head, in which she is, as well as Vin and John, and she leaves the building as this movie is a tease, which made the climax piss me off at the end of the day. Now it's time for my rating. I'll give this movie a 3.9 out of 10. Thank God this is an 86-minute movie, because if it went longer, it would have been tedious, but at the same time, I don't like the three characters. Like, Vin is fucked up in the head, John annoyed the shit out of me, and Amy is so manipulative from start to finish. This would work better as a play more than it would as a movie, and I wanted a movie out of this more than a play out of this, and I'll give the writer Stephen Belper as he does this. He does a good job with the characters, and director Richard Linklater does a good job annoying the fuck out of me for this whole movie. And this is a boring movie, as it was frustrating how the camera was moving to the point I was going back and forth while falling asleep, as I can't relate with any of these people. The movie bored me to death, and there were times it was awkward to listen to the dialogue, as I don't believe they're friends, as they manipulate one another, as this climax really pissed me off, and as this is a non-recommendation, and this is one of the crappiest found footage movies, other than fucking Paranormal Activity, which I hope one day I never do, but never say never. And I'm not a fan of that kind of movie, as I'm not a fan of this movie. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with the better movie called Waking Life. And until then, good night.